Connie Willis, the podcast. Taking you into new ways of thinking, even providing answers to questions you've often pondered. Connie Willis, the podcast. This is a Connie Willis exclusive. What you're about to hear has never been heard anywhere else. This is Connie Willis, the podcast.
Connie Willis, the podcast. Thank you so much for supporting me. Please pass it on to some other friends and say, hey, check this out, so that we can keep this podcast going. It only survives with you supporting it, and it's free. So what the heck? Why not? That way it'll keep going and going and going. We are at Phase 2 series with Robert Treat. We're going to have some people that want to come in and talk with Robert, so they're going to join the show. Philip Kinsella of the Kinsella Twins will be one of those. robtreat.com, that's where you want to go. This is the last segment that we're going to have in this series. And in a second, I'm going to ask you, kind of some closing, for you to give some closing statements, closing thoughts, and something maybe spectacular to give us. But beforehand, you spoke of Shadow Man that crushed, that was like choking you and crushed that, they crushed that one little bone. Don't you die when that one little bone's crushed? Oh, jeez. So, oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. That was my fault. Human error here. We're live. All right, let me bring that up again, because I didn't have your mic on. That was me. The other one, I don't know what that was, but something happened. Something cut you off from what you were saying before. This one was me. So let's go back to that. So the Shadow Man, you are telling us about a story where a Shadow Man is choking you and broke the little bone that you just said that people miss because of my error. That's the bone that your voice comes, that creates the words. But a Shadow Man, that's even bigger. The Shadow Man was choking you. What's going on? Start from the beginning.
We just moved into this house on the lake. And we kept hearing just thumps and bumps like all night long, every night. And, I thought it was my wife's daughter. And one night it was just banging away. And I was like, what on earth? I looked over at Tammy. I'm like, what on earth is she doing up there? And she looked back. She goes, she's not even home. And I'm like, what are all those noises? And she goes, I have no idea. And my friend Paul Burns, he came over right at that time, and I was like, "Hey, Paul, you help me go look up in the attic, because I thought it might be an animal or something up there." So I go up in the attic, and he's down at the bottom of the ladder, and I'm searching around up there with a flashlight. All the banging stopped at this point, and it's been going on for weeks, and so I don't find anything. So I go back to the opening, so I'm, looking down through the hole. I'm up in the attic. I'm looking down through the hole, and I'm holding on to the rafters. And I'm talking to Paul, and I'm saying, I don't know what it is. I didn't see any evidence of any animals. And this thing just grabs me from the back and starts trying to throw me down the hole. And, Tammy's screaming, and Paul's like, what the hell? What the F? What the F? Because I'm holding on for dear life, trying not to get thrown down the hole. And they can see I'm just struggling, like with all the strength in my arms, not to get pushed down this hole. And then this thing just comes from behind, grabs me by the throat. I go flying backwards into the darkness. Now my wife and Paul can't see me, and they're screaming, Rob, Rob. This thing's got me in the corner of the attic, just beating the crap out of me, like hard, And I could see it, just this black shadow, no eyes, nothing. It is just wailing on me. And it's crushing my throat so much I can't scream for help, right? The thing finally lets go, and, I scramble back to the hole and scramble down, and, I get to the bottom, and I'm, I look at my wife, and I'm trying to explain what happened, and there's no words coming out of my mouth.
Oh.
So she immediately calls a doctor. We get in the car, we go down to the doctor's office, and he had a full medical clinic there. He had his own X-ray equipment, and he looked down my throat, and then he took me into the X-ray room, X-rayed it, and told me my hyoid bone was broken, and you could see fingerprint bruises on my neck.
So was this thing blacker than black?
It was just like it was so black, it was just like an empty hole, human-shaped hole in space. Like,
Did it have a hat?
no, it didn't have a hat.
What was the shape look like?
It looked like a cardboard cutout ginger man kind of thing.
Oh my gosh.
No distinct features, like no ears, just a shape, right? And granted, I didn't get a clear look at it. I was in the dark, it was in the dark.
But you knew it wasn't a human. You knew it wasn't a person that broke in.
Yeah, because it was backlit from the light coming up through the attic hole hatch.
Was it cold on your neck, the hands, or was it warm to the touch?
I honestly say that it didn't register in my head. I felt like I was literally fighting for my life at that point.
Do you remember if it was like bony fingers or anything like that, or hairy, or?
Oh no, it felt like just a full on, like a hand, like a regular hand.
Man.
And this was at the time when I was doing like a TV show about the paranormal. I was doing ghost hunts, going out to haunted locations and cemeteries and stuff.
And it was a show you were doing?
Yeah, it was a concept for a show I was putting together, and so we'd gone out and we'd done a few locations, and I had a psychic on the team, and the psychic had used a Ouija board in the house.
Oh, didn't close the door.
And that was right after that, and I decided, I was like, I'm done with the messing with ghosts. That was way too real.
Yeah, wow.
I still have my ghost hunting equipment. I just not doing it.
Yeah, those Ouija boards, you open up little doors and gates, and you got to shut them too if you're going to do that. Yeah. And wow, you never know.
Poo-poo ghosts and stuff all you want to, but yeah.
Oh, I grew up with one in the house, and everywhere I went, they seemed to be around. But so, did you sell the house after that, or?
Yeah.
You never go back after that night?
I don't even know. I wouldn't even drive past it anymore. I'd take the other way through the neighborhood, because I got another house in the same neighborhood.
Oh.
But I would take the other entrance into the neighborhood. I wouldn't go past that house anymore.
This is a Connie Willis exclusive on Connie Willis, the podcast. Learn more about Connie, her guests, and join her private membership shows, Blue Rock Talk and Connie After Dark, at ConnieWillis.com.
And how did the ground smell there as you were going by it? You said it didn't smell so good, like the whole area. Was the house smelling bad too?
Flower beds, the ground just smelled like dead things. The house was fine. And I came to learn later that whole area has a very, very bad history. Going back to the French, the Indians, and the Mexicans, Spanish killing each other in that area. Had a much more bloody history than I was aware when I first moved here.
And the house was put on some sort of burial ground or something.
Yeah, it was right on Lake Houston, and what I learned was that Lake Houston used to be a tributary, a major creek stream that fed into the major river system here, but that particular stream was used by the Spanish on the gold trail when they were bringing the gold, silver, and lead from the New Mexico and Arizona territories into Florida. It would come right through that area. So my house sat right where there was a lot of Spanish activity, and the French and the Native Americans were constantly attacking. There was a lot of fighting going on here in that particular area. And I always felt like that whole area is cursed.
Hear Connie Willis on Coast to Coast AM.
RobTreat.com is where you can find Robert, at RobTreat.com. You can get his blog post and hear more things of what he can tell you that he hasn't had time for, or you can ask him questions there too. I'm just going to get to the final question with you. Mm-hmm. Is there, and before you say your last words throughout, I'm hoping you got something else right now, at least, to tell us that, that was the whole plan, is you wanted to tell everything and let the world know what is the truth. And I hope you can give us something else.
Yeah, one thing I think would be great if people started doing would be, if you have a telescope, high power binoculars, even like the new Samsung Galaxy, was it S23 now, whatever it is, um, they all have the capability of imaging the moon. Um, and I would encourage everybody to watch the moon, you know, um, as much as they can. Really pay attention to that, because one conspiracy I can absolutely confirm is the moon is hollow, and we've known about that for a long time. Um, there are aliens living on it. They've been there from the start. And it's not just that the moon is hollow, they built it. It's theirs. They brought it into Earth's orbit as an observation station. Um, and there's a lot of little, interesting moon facts that are fairly readily available, through the NASA data. Um, that backs that up as, you can take my word for it or not, but if you do your own research, you'll turn up enough evidence to corroborate what I'm saying is a fact. Um, Even the Apollo 12, Apollo 13 missions, from Apollo 11 on, we knew that the moon was hollow, which is why Apollo 12 deliberately crashed the lander into it. Um, After the Apollo 12 lander was deliberately crashed into the moon, it rang like a bell for about an hour. So the following mission, which we were always, the part of the story that we know about, the public knows about, is Apollo 13 got into trouble on its way to the moon. There's another part to that story, which is we actually crashed one of the fuel pods into the moon. We needed a larger object. We wanted to see what would happen, to confirm the data that the moon was hollow. And this is where one of the big reasons why we never went back to the moon. We were made very clear that we're not welcome until we learn how to behave. Is when you drop that fuel pod, when Apollo 13 fuel pod hit the moon, we recorded vibrations ringing to a depth of 40 miles. And at 40 miles, the vibrations accelerated, indicating that the core was hollow. And the fact that it was ringing, that the moon rang at all, was an indication that it's hollow. But not only did we confirm that it was hollow, we also confirmed it was made out of metal. It was an artificial structure. And some of the additional giveaways to that was that the soil on the top of the moon was older than the soil at depth. Usually it's the other way around. It's almost always the other way around. The oldest soil's on the bottom. The moon's not that. It isn't the case. It shows that, material was taken from inside the moon and placed on the outside. And also the composition of the moon is nothing like the Earth. It's exactly the composition you would expect from an artificial structure. So they're living there. They've been there for a long time, at least 11,000 years. There's many civilizations that talk about the time when there was no moon in the sky. That thing was brought in here, and it's not proven, but it's highly suspected that the moon entering our atmosphere, being placed in our orbit, was what caused the Great Deluge. That before that it had never rained and there had never been floods on the Earth. So it's likely that the moon is actually what causes the Great Flood in the first place. But yeah, the thing's hollow. It is inhabited. They are watching us. And I think if enough telescopes were pointed at it consistently, we'd probably finally get some evidence of, of ships. One interesting fact about the moon is that at least 3 times over the same crater, we've detected a little cloud of moisture. So the moon has a degree of atmosphere to it.
You had said they lived on it, and before you had said they live in, is it on it or in it?
The
Are they observing on the outside or inside?
the the, the moon, we believe, I don't know if anybody has actually been inside it, but it's likely that the moon itself is a Dyson sphere. There's a heat signature inside it. Um, that it's probably what did they call it? They believe a white dwarf is at the center of the moon, and that the aliens live inside the moon. Um, are they the good ones or the bad ones? I don't know, but I've had several people confirm that the moon is hollow. The aliens aren't living there, and that during our initial space program to the moon, we were told to get lost and don't come back.
So is that one of the reasons why Kennedy was assassinated?
I don't think it was why Kennedy was assassinated. I think his assassination was much more petty, but it is the reason why Neil Armstrong resigned from NASA as soon as he got back from the moon.
Because they were telling him otherwise?
Something he encountered, something he experienced up there on the moon, which would have been first contact, right? Um, think about it. Neil Armstrong, the most famous astronaut in the world, first man to walk on the moon, comes back to Earth. The first thing he does is quit his job. Does that sound normal to you?
What do you think happened?
Oh, I think it's exactly what was it Gordon Cooper that dropped the bomb on that said when they went to the moon, um, that the reason Neil Armstrong flubbed his line, his famous one small step for man, why he messed that line up was because that was take two, and when they stepped out of the capsule for the first time, that they saw a UFO parked on the crater with alien grays standing outside of it watching them.
Oh.
And Neil Armstrong was so rattled that he screwed up his line, right? And then when he got back to Earth, he quits his job and doesn't talk to anybody. Um,
Do you
yeah, I believe that story about Apollo 11. And if we didn't suspect that the aliens were living there, why on the very next mission did we crash the lander into the moon to see what it would do?
the other moons around the other planets, are they, I mean, should we just expect that moons are all artificial?
I think when we finally learn the secrets of the universe, that we will be absolutely shocked on how wrong we are. um, just based on what I know and what I've seen, I would think that so much of our universe is actually created.
Mm-hmm. So what do you know for sure? I mean, the things you just told us about the moon, you know that from your work and you know that fact wise, or is it just more of like some of us have caught and we know it from hearing stories here and there, or do you know it from some factual situation?
I don't know it from firsthand experience, but I do believe it's factual in that I've heard the same matching story from numerous credible sources, like people who would know.
Who would they be?
Oh, like Kitten and Randolph, various people at these events I attended. Um,
And
and
Randolph and Kitten were.
I'm not going to say who Kitten is, but Kitten is her code name, and she's a very high-ranking
Would we know
la-
her?
lady in D.C. Very likely.
Okay.
She's also very involved in Hollywood. Very, very influential lady, and I'm not putting her out there. Glenn Randolph was Glenn's superior.
Would we know him?
Oh no, no,
Okay. But we would know Kitten.
yes.
This is like the first time, by the way, that you've mentioned Kitten is in this series. I don't remember you mentioning Kitten on any other conversations.
Yeah, she was kind of special to me.
Did you name
Not,
her Kitten? I mean, I'm just saying.
I don't know who named her Kitten, but you know, um, that's whatever. That's what she's known as, is Kitten. Um, very deep, gravelly, like, those like those actresses like from the 40s that had the very like, gravelly, musky voice.
Yeah.
They came to call that the sex kitten voice.
And she's still in Hollywood and DC?
Yeah.
Alrighty, well, thank you for giving us some other information like that and confirming what you know and telling some of your secrets. And again, we've got some other things coming up with you. But hey, this phase 2 is done. If there's any last words you want to say before we close this out.
I just hope we got to all the questions from the Blue Rockers. I felt bad we ran out of time and we didn't get to them. So
A lot of information.
yeah, and 2 hours goes by pretty quick.
But you're getting ready. You're getting ready for a big surgery.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to hearing these other guests talk about their experiences, because they can probably fill in some of the blanks for me, the missing pieces I have. This is the first time I've had the opportunity to interact with other people in the UFO world, so. It's nice to know that there's others out there, and looking forward to hearing what they have to say.
Informant. What you just heard has never been heard anywhere else. This is Connie Willis, the podcast. Informant. Learn more about Connie, her guests, and be sure to join her private membership shows, Blue Rock Talk and Connie After Dark, at ConnieWillis.com. Whistleblower.